Imagine, John Lennon. Absolutely beautiful song. And the reason I've just played that song is because we have a very special guest in the studio, and it is science fiction author, John C. Withwick. Hello, John.
Hi, Phoebe.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm really good. Yeah, I'm thriving.
Great. It's great to have you back in the studio. And you've given us some lovely song selections today, as well as talking about your upcoming releases, book releases. But tell me about why you chose Imagine.
Okay, so I thought I'd have a bit of fun today, and all the music I've chosen is through famous artists who are also UFO experiencers or fans. So not many people know, but John Lennon he saw a UFO from his 52nd Street, New York City apartment, and he saw it, and his housekeeper came out and saw it too, and he was kind of a fan ever since. And recently, some of his doodles were sold at auction, and one of them went for £10,000. So there's obviously a lot of fans out there that kind of like the irony of that.
Now, just in case we have some listeners who didn't hear you on the show before, tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, so my background is basically I kind of was a bit of a dropout when I was a kid, and I went to university a couple of times, dropped out once, went back and did an arts degree, and then I got into the world of advertising by hook or by crook, and spent a few years making TV commercials. I had a brief year or so in living in the south of France, working as a football and sports agent, and then I came back and I worked in video games for best part of 20 years. So I've been kind of in and about the creative industry for a long time, marketing and selling video games for other people's creative IP, and I thought it was about time that I created my own. So I wanted to create a series of books. I've always been a huge fan of sci-fi, so I kind of wanted to create a series of books, and I created one, and the first one was called HUMANredux.
And we talked about that when you were last on the show. It's
That's
a
right.
Fantastic book, which I have read. And tell me, what has happened since then?
Well, it's been strange because it's very difficult to become a new writer. You kind of one of many 100,000 writers who are all sort of plugging away, and you kind of put your work out there. I mean, I was lucky. I had a publisher who believed in me and believed in the work, and made the effort to publish me on his label, and it's gone really well. I mean, he's really thrilled. He kind of feels that I need a bigger label, and he's willing, because of the sales so far, he's willing to pitch it out to some of the big guys. But I'm hesitant because I know they take a long time, and it's kind of nimble and quick when you're publishing yourself, and I don't really see any major benefit right now because it's selling reasonably well. So I kind of want to plug away for a little longer on my own, see where I get to. Self-publishing is the new rock and roll. So
I see.
Yeah. So no, it's been really fun. It's difficult for me. I'm not a full-time writer. I do have to do a job as well. So I kind of
many of us.
Yeah, it's my passion and my hobby. So I would love to one day be able to write full-time. At the moment, that still remains a dream. But you never know. If I get 4 or 5 books in, you never know what might happen. I might start earning enough to quit my job and do this full-time.
Well, I do hope so, because you're a fantastic writer. I thoroughly enjoyed the first book.
Thank you.
So let's talk about your next song. Introduce your next song.
Yeah, this is the Kinks, Lola, and Dave Davies of the Kinks said he was telepathically contacted by extraterrestrials in 1982, and he had a huge passion for UFOs and all things aliens. For the majority of his life, he was quite famous for, and I just thought it's one of my favourite songs with the Kinks. I love that period of time as well, and I think I'm a big fan, so that was the reason I chose this one.
Lola, the Kinks. Absolutely brilliant track, John. Great choice.
Thank you.
So, book one. I have read book one, called HUMANredux. It's fantastic. It's a sci-fi novel, but maybe not as you know it. Would that be the right thing to say?
Yeah, I think it's not a traditional sci-fi book. It's kind of more in the vein of it involves aliens, time travel, so it is pretty much sci-fi, but it's more of a sociological study. I guess I set out to try and define and try and understand why we are so kind of messed up as a species, why we're so warlike, why we're so divided, why all those influences, and it's been a real exploration, and I've really enjoyed that theme, pursuing that theme through books 2, and I've just finished book 3 as well.
Fantastic. Now, talking of books 2 and 3, which is what you're here to talk about, I have been very lucky to have a sneak preview of book 2 and have read it. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm not just saying that. I have read book 1 and thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's great to have the second in the series. So tell us about book 2 and book 3.
Okay. It's difficult to talk about book 3 without kind of spoiling book 2, so I'm just going to talk about book 2 today.
Perfect.
Basically, it takes place, the majority of it, 5 years after the events of book 1. The Roman Empire have captured a couple of the original 5 time travelers, and they are basically manipulating them for all of their knowledge of the future and all technologies, weapons, etc., as you would imagine. And the rest of the people that went back in time are still stuck in North America, not stuck, and they're kind of building this thriving society, and they're kind of aware of the Romans will eventually come looking for them, and probably will invade, and it'll be quite nasty when it happens. So they're making plans for their arrival. They're kind of splitting their society up and hiding and trying to find ways to survive this inevitable invasion. So that the whole book basically takes place over that period of time. And yeah, it's that sort of exploration of what the Romans would do given all that technology, and how you would resist that invasion if you were trying to build this sort of better world. And it's each of the characters has their own sort of path. There's 5 of them that originally went back in time, plus the alien who's called Tok, and all of them have their kind of different adventures and misadventures. And I won't spoil the ending, obviously, but things come to a head and then take a mysterious new turn.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, so and that's really where it leads into book 3.
And is book 2 ready to be published yet? Is it ready to buy?
Not yet. So there's a couple of things at play. I've been contacted by a BAFTA-nominated designer who's a fan, which is amazing. I've got another celebrity fan I'll tell you about in a minute.
But he's celebrity a fan.
And he kind of wants to work. He's in a particular area of design, and he wants to start doing this sort of design work. So he's volunteered to help me out with covers of book 2 and 3, and he's also going to relook at the cover of book 1, which is really exciting. I was just seeing the new designs, and he wants to give it a real feel, a real sci-fi feel, but at the same time make it a little bit contemporary and snappy, and maybe bring in some new audiences. And he wants to give the series a theme, so that you'd instantly recognise each of the books as being part of the series, and it's fantastic. I'm really excited.
And does this designer have a name? Are we allowed to disclose this, or are they a secret designer that you want to keep to yourself?
I haven't asked his permission to talk about it, so I won't say. I'm very confident.
That's okay.
But he's fantastic, and hopefully once we have that agreed, we'll talk about it, yeah.
Brilliant. So let's get on to your next track. Tell me about the next track and why you chose this one.
Okay, so I've always been a huge fan of Jimi Hendrix, ever since I was a kind of teenager. And Hendrix is also a UFO experiencer. He had many experiences, and he often used to tell people that he was a spiritual messenger sent from another place. One of the most famous sightings was on Rainbow Bridge on the island of Maui in the 70s, and UFOs were seen. One huge UFO drifted over the concert where he was going to play, and even a cameraman on a perch saw it and fell off the perch and almost broke his leg. So it was kind of one of those famous sightings. So anyway, big fan of Jimmy, and this is one of my favourites called Hey Joe.
Jimi Hendrix. Classic track, great track, John. Thank you for that one.
No problem.
Now, you mentioned just before something about a celebrity fan. What would you like to say about that?
No, it's really, when you write books and you just put stuff out there, and it's really strange. Occasionally you get the odd naff review, but I've been lucky in that the majority of my reviews on Amazon have been really positive 5-star reviews, and it's fantastic to see that. And I get feedback all the time on Twitter with people asking when book 2's out, and it's wonderful. It really sort of in the difficult nights, because I'm kind of writing in my spare time. You need those little nudges to push you over the line. So, but out of the blue, I got a tweet from Goldie.
Really?
His Twitter handle is Mr. Goldie, saying you got to check this guy's sci-fi writing out, and I was stunned. And then
Fantastic.
I was tweeting just now about coming on the show, and he retweeted me. So it's like it was a real
brilliant. So we've got a fan in Goldie. Goldie, if you're listening, welcome.
Hi,
welcome
Goldie.
to the show,
Big
and a
fan
big
of
hello.
yours
Now, book 3.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you said before you can't really tell us too much about book 3 because that, you know, you don't want to spoil book 2 for people. But have you written it? Is it completed? And can you tell us anything about it?
I have. It's difficult to say, but I kind of wanted to make sure there were things in book 1 I would have liked to have changed as I was writing book 2, just details I would have liked to have added or maybe omitted. And as I started writing book 3, I kind of realised that I should hold off in publishing book 2 because there might be similar things I would want to change. So I've been kind of writing them both side by side. So as I'm writing 2, and I'm going back and revising. Sorry, as I'm writing 3, I'm going back and revising 2, and I've literally just finished both of them. And I'm going through, and because there is about 250,000 words of narrative that kind of all have to make sense and line up, and you can't contradict yourself or change the story, and you need to make things, you know, especially as you're going forwards and backwards in time, you need to make sure all the timelines work. So yeah, it's been quite a labour of love, and it's quite difficult to finish it off to make sure it's all consistent. But there'll be rounds of proofreading and all the rest of it, as there is with every single book. But I've really enjoyed it, and all I'll say about book 3 is that the mysteries that you discover in book 2 deepen. It becomes, there's 2 characters that are introduced in book 2. One's called Zatan, and the other one is called Zacharias. And they are both kind of mystical characters that you don't really understand until you get right to the end of book 3. So they are a theme that runs through the entire book and the entire narrative, that kind of slowly you kind of learn more and more and more about the situation. And it's that way of, the final book's called Illumination. And it's kind of, you understand the whole picture and the whole situation and the whole story at that point. But I have left it open for another one.
Oh, do you think that's going to upset some people when they finish book 3, expecting it to end? Have you just spoilt anything there? Maybe
not. I mean, in most of these series, you know, you always leave it back to what. I mean, with time travel. Anyway, you can always open up a new doorway where it was closed before. So
that's true.
No, maybe not. Maybe people will be gutted at the end of book 3 and they want more. But I've left it open more for myself, that if I wanted to keep writing it and people really like it, then I can do it. At the same time, you know, I probably will emotionally want to move on to another subject or another series. I mean, if it's not massively popular, then you kind of, not that I'm chasing the dollars, but you kind of want a little bit of success to keep you going.
Of course. Okay, let's talk about your next song, John.
Okay, Mark Bolan of T-Rex, also very, very into his aliens, his UFOs. He wrote countless songs with references to flying saucers and outer space, including The Visit, Ballroom with Mars, Space Boss, Galaxy and Interstellar Soul. But my favourite of Bolan is Get It On.
T-Rex, Get It On. That is a fantastic track. Great choices, John. Loving the tunes. And they're all obviously sci-fi related, aren't they? That's why you've chosen them.
Kind of. They've all had experiences with UFOs and stuff. I thought it would be a good theme.
So, you mentioned 2 names in the book just before. What were the names you mentioned?
Yeah, so Zatan.
Yeah.
And Zacharias.
And it really intrigued me. How do you come up with these names?
Well, it's throughout the book. In the new society that was kind of created in North America, the Native American word for God was Edoda, and so you have a mixture of this new society which are called the Edodan, and I've kind of nicked a load of Native American names from the Algonquins and the Cherokees and all the rest of it. So a lot of the characters featured names from that time. Also, I've kind of used, like, there's a character called FOMO, which stands for fear of missing out, a kind of adventurous sort. In book 1, there's a guy called Tick who features heavily in book 2. And there's, you know, so I've taken a lot of sort of alien folklore stuff as well, and stolen names from them. But it would spoil the surprise if I was to give you the exact reasons behind those names. No, don't spoil any
surprises. Please don't. And, you know, when you're, as an author, when you're writing these stories, how do you come to a conclusion, or how do you come to an end? Is it hard, you know, to put it to rest, to finish a book?
Yeah, it is. It's basically, you set yourself, you're aware that you're on a journey, and you kind of, it's like drawing a tree. You draw the outlines of the branches and the tree stump, and you have the sort of structure of the story. and then you kind of have to fill in the detail of the leaves and all the individual branches, and that's where really it comes alive. And often you can be writing a chapter and then suddenly get an idea, and it takes the rest of the book in a completely different direction. So it's kind of written, it's part written through planning and part written through it just natural organic growth. And I've really enjoyed it, and it's often meant that the story isn't